There's so much strife in the world today. I'm going to talk about mindset, how important that is in shaping our lives. We're all born equal. When we come out of the mother's womb, we all come like animals into this world with a totally open platform. No previous judgment, no previous experiences, no interaction with any other human being. When we start to grow, we're influenced by the people who bring us up, who rear us. We're influenced by our peers, we're influenced by our schoolmasters, things we hear on the news, things we hear on the radio, things we hear in the streets. Everything, if you like, is stored in a human version of the mind TiVo. We go along through life not knowing sometimes why we react to certain things the way we do, not knowing why we make the decisions we do. And the scary thing is, we always do this in our subconscious. The things we've stored, we've all had disappointments, we've all had heartbreak, we've all had failure, we've all had setbacks. Life is not promised to be smooth. What actually makes our life is what we make out of these setbacks, out of these failures. By realizing that each of those failures are actually growth phases, and they give us an opportunity to, as a fork, either to go to the left, which we'll refer to as being the dark, or to the right, which we'll refer to as being the light. That choice is ours to take. The things that come our way, they're going to come our way. They're not going to change. Life is life, and to be honest, each day is exactly the same. The only things that are different are the experiences and the intangibles we encounter during that day. All the other things basically are the same. The calendar will change, the date will change, but ultimately, Tom's going to be Tom a year down the road unless he makes changes, and Jane will be Jane. The only thing that makes a difference is how we handle those intangibles. What really determines our quality of life is not so much the quality coming in, but what we perceive and what we make of what's coming in. It's a human mind TiVo that we edit in our mind, and basically the edited work is what our life is. Whatever we choose to edit is what we get. Whether something is positive or negative, it's our interpretation that does that decision for us. But where we can change is realizing and becoming aware of where we have patterns. If we have a pattern going towards negative things, we can put even, let's say, going on trips. We heard when we were growing up by parents, this trip's going to be bad, the traffic's going to be bad, I hate going on trips. Maybe the parents fought on trips, maybe they didn't get along on trips. But it isn't the trip that we feel is bad. It's our interpretation of a series of trips that basically encompass our opinion of trips. So they are what they are. It's what we make of those. That's ultimately going to shape us. So the world is basically the same place, but very different for each individual. It's our interpretation of the information we receive and our interaction with things that interpret our world. My world may be very different than somebody else's world. Your world may be very different than somebody else's. But what we make of it is ultimately how we're going to live. So what I want to do is just give you examples of how we can move forward in a positive way. And I want to go into that, basically into the realm of our thoughts create our environment. Our thoughts create our life. So if we go into things thinking that they're negative, that's what's going to happen. Rather than going into something with an open mind, say, look, I'm going to stay here one chapter at a time. I'm going to read this book one page at a time. Just like we do a marathon. Rather than thinking of spending the whole 26.2 miles, how hard it's going to be. If we go in with that mindset, it's going to be hard on mile 1. Mile 26.2 will be no different. Mile 13.1 will be no different because we've already edited that part of our life. See, we're the editors. The power above gives us this life. It's our pathway. Destiny is determined to how we're going to end it and where we're going to go. What isn't determined is how we edit that life. In other words, how we interpret the content of our life. By going to bed with a certain mindset that all things are available, you've been taken care of for so long, for however long you've lived on this planet. We open up our realm not to worry. We open up our realm to faith, following faith, and then building on that. Because when we have a platform of faith, we can then build and move forward without judging and without being in fear. How else would I know how something may turn out if I haven't done it? Every circumstance is unique. Every person you encounter is unique. Every business experience is unique. The ones we did a day ago, a week ago, a year ago, 5 years ago that caused us heartbreak, guess what? They're not the ones we're doing right now. But most of us are living our life through the editing and the haze of previous things stored in our mind TiVo. We need to be very careful what we put into this mind TiVo. We need to erase the things that are not serving us, in other words, the things that are not moving us forward, and only play back things that are serving our purpose. If we spend our life focusing on the very things we don't have, on the very scarcity of stuff, and how hard things are, how can things be easy and flowing and abundant if we spend our entire life focusing on scarcity? An interesting thought. If our thoughts create our reality, how come so many of us spend it in negative environments? How come so many of us dwell on the badness of things, the badness of relationships, the badness of economy, the badness of other races, the badness of other parts of the world? We spend 90% of our time focusing on what could be bad and what could go wrong and insuring against it, talking ourselves out of opportunities, holding ourselves back, living in a cage, living in a presumptive jail, a presumptive mindset jail. We put ourselves in that jail. God doesn't put us in that jail. We have a planet that's open. If we live our life like a bird, we can fly. We don't think about not being able to fly across the road because we're a bird. We do it. Animals are a great balancer, you know. They don't judge things by the past. Even if you've abused them, you know how loving they'll be the following day? They'll not nip you or harbor any resentment. That's because they're open and loving and warm. And they're just open to all the things. They have their mind TiVo. It's already been, it doesn't filter the same way ours does. It doesn't store, doesn't go through the cells because they remain in the moment. Just think how magnificent your life could be if you didn't have to tire yourself out through the stress of worrying about taking a journey because it may be foggy, of worrying about the freeway because it may be blocked up, of worrying about Disneyland because it might be jammed, of worrying about a relationship if it may go sour. Just think how many things you've lost along the way. Suppose if you go to Disneyland with an open mind, maybe it's going to be quiet at the park. Maybe it'll be one Wednesday in summer that there isn't an hour-and-a-half line. Maybe you'll be in that line for 15 minutes. You'd have lost a beautiful experience, a beautiful time. Suppose if that journey to Vegas doesn't have fog, and you cancel that journey because your cells are so used to positing the negativity of how bad they say the weather will be. You could have a great trip. You could win $1,500 gambling. You could have a great time. Time that doesn't come back. We can't go back. We can't fast rewind. We're on a forward program. Our life is 1 minute at a time. You know, the only thing significant in your life right now is right now. Because when tomorrow comes, it's just another version of now. 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago when I started this talk, it's gone. Or coming back to relationships. Maybe we had a first failed marriage. You know what 65% of marriages fail? We meet someone who may be the love of our life, or may be what we call the right person, meaning the person who's done some work on themselves and who's interdependent, who doesn't need you emotionally or financially, they just need companionship to share what they have. You may talk yourself out of the greatest rest of your life yet, because if your presumptive mindset is so fixed on the TiVo and the editing you've done from previous relationships, you couldn't even see it if it hit you between the eyeballs. It's not the time you've lived in this world. It's the time you've been open enough to actually live. The tragedy is not that we die. The tragedy is that we take so long to live. I ask you, what kind of life do you want for yourself? Do you want a life that's on cruise control? You have a 200-mile-an-hour car. You put it on cruise control for 70 miles an hour. There's 130 miles an hour that are never even going to be used or tapped. I appeal to you today, that's how your life could probably be. Majority of people's lives are. You'll have 130 miles an hour of untapped potential that could change your life and give you happiness, reward, joy, abundance instead of scarcity, happiness instead of sadness, joy instead of sorrow. What kind of life do you want to choose? Do you want to put yourself in a mind jail, or do you want to have the openness of the pet, of the animals, of the pets that we so love? You get one shot at this life. Why keep it at 70%? Why stay on cruise control? Why not get the full 200 miles an hour out of your life? Reinforce only positive thoughts. There are stuff that's not good. I realize that. Don't dwell on it, because the more you dwell on something, that's what we become. Dwell on positive thoughts, the things you have in your life that you can turn into more. If you focus on the things you don't have or the things you perceive as bad, how can you ever focus on changing? How can you ever focus on getting better from your life? I appeal to you today just to make a change. Just be joyous in what you have. Be grateful for what you have, because it's much worse. Try missing a day. Try missing a day. Nothing is as bad as we presume it to be. Open yourself up, start living. Take the cruise control off and fly around at 200 miles an hour. God bless.